monitor Donald Trump speaking right now to supporters in Vandalia, Ohio. On the phone with us right now is one of the fellows that Donald Trump was just criticizing, Marco Rubio. He joins us on the phone, campaigning in Florida. Senator, good to have you.
Thanks. Thanks for having me on.
I caught your remarks earlier this morning, Senator, in which you talked about Donald Trump's tone. But what struck me is that you seem to be hedging, might be a strong word, maybe my interpretation, on whether you could back Donald Trump if he ultimately became your party's nominee. How do you feel about that?
Well, the fact that I'm even asked about it tells you how I feel about it, and that is, it makes it harder every day. I don't want the Republican Party to have to make that choice. I don't want us to nominate someone, no matter what I do. A significant percentage of Republicans are not going to vote for him. And I think that's only getting worse every day that goes by. And that means we lose. We lose to Hillary Clinton. So, you wouldn't have to ask me that question if it was about anybody else that was in this race or is in this race. You have to ask me that about Donald Trump, because every single day he continues to make it harder and harder for people to be able to be supportive of him. I mean, one thing is to be in a race with someone that you disagree with on policy, but in general you agree with on a lot of things. Another thing is to be in a race with someone who not only is rhetoric incredibly divisive and taking advantage of people's anger, but someone who refuses to even have the most basic understanding of the major policy issues we face in this country. And he's asking to be president, not county commissioner, not even a member of Congress, president of the United States.
But you seem to be blaming these dust-ups at his event, particularly one last night, on him.
Well, I said that last night's event, put that aside for a moment, because Chicago is a place where there's a lot of professional protesters and provocateurs, and I do not believe that no matter how offensive you may find Donald Trump, you do not have a right to disrupt his events and prevent him from speaking. That aside, you can't ignore the fact that increasingly Donald Trump events have become violent. You had a guy sucker punch the other day at one of his events. The guy is released from jail after being arrested for having done it, and he says the next time maybe we should kill him, and they refuse to condemn him. Yeah, he's responsible for that language, and I think we as Republicans, those of us who are Republicans, need to look at ourselves and say, is this what the party is going to be about? And we as Americans look and say, is this the kind of discourse we're going to have in American politics moving forward? Because if it is, we're in a lot of trouble.
What he did say, though, referring to criticism he got from you, Senator, and from Ted Cruz, is they wish they had the number of people I do at my rallies. Tens of thousands of people, obviously, paraphrasing here, you're going to have some. But
that's the way he always goes back to. If he judges himself by how many people he has to go to his rallies, it's always about Donald Trump. All of this is about him for himself. It's all about how many people come to see him. Him. He needs to be the center of everything in order to feel happy. This election is not about. We are not a nation of men. We're a nation of laws. The president is an important job, but we are not a country that says, "Oh, let's elect the right president." We deposit all our hopes and dreams in a strong man who's going to lead us in the right direction. We believe that most of what happens in our lives is due to what we are willing to do. How hard are you willing to work? What great ideas do you have? How long are you willing to persevere? We have a government, but the job of government is very limited. And what we need is a president that leads our country in the right direction. But we don't need a cult of personality, which is what apparently he's trying to build for himself.
Well, Ben Carson is apparently okay with him. He just backed him.
Well, you'll have to ask Ben Carson then.
I did ask him, and he just says he stands by his recommendation and still sees that a lot of what happens at Trump events is really generated by large crowds. You say what?
I say that when you have someone, there are other people that have had large crowds before. There are concerts in America and sporting events that draw 3 times as many people as his rallies do, and you don't see the kind of level of violence. You don't see members of your campaign team assaulting reporters that you see here. But this is deeper than just what happens at the event, okay? This is a nation of people that are very angry and frustrated, by the way, across the board, not just Trump supporters. There are people on the left that are angry and frustrated as well. And the job of a leader is not to stir up anger. The job of a leader is to acknowledge the anger and say, and here's how we're going to make it better. And what he's trying to do is stir up that anger and use it to get people to vote for him. And it is having a devastating impact on our political culture and on our political debate in this country. And we need a healthy political debate in this country if we're going to solve problems. We need, this is what's at stake here, and is our ability to be able to solve some pretty big issues. Or we're going to have to explain to our kids why I inherit this diminished country. And instead, today, the Donald Trump political discourse is basically no different than the comment section of a blog or the trolling that you see on Twitter. And when you ask to be president of the United States, words have consequences for a candidate and ultimately for a president.
Do you worry, regardless of how you fare in Florida this week, Senator, that you could be looking at a divisive convention? All Republicans could. Some are even saying analogous to what the Democrats are dealing with in 1968. Do you worry about that?
I worry about the general, beyond the convention, the impact on the Republican Party, absolutely. They have a significant percentage of Republicans who will never vote for Donald Trump, period. They won't vote for him. And if they won't vote for him, it won't just divide the party. It'll hand the election to Hillary Clinton. They just won't vote at all. I worry about that, sure. I worry about
Donald Trump
like
says he says you're needlessly worrying because he's bringing in many more to the Republican Party, people who were never Republicans before, never voted before, and it's going to be, well, to quote him, huge.
I don't know what to tell you other than that every single public poll shows how poorly he does against Hillary Clinton. I think that only gets worse. You know, Donald Trump is partially a creation of the media. I mean, every media outlet, including this one, has given him extraordinary amount of coverage. Anytime and it was well before he was ahead in the polls. Every time he said something over the top, he got wall-to-wall coverage. That same media is going to turn on him as soon as, if he were to become the nominee, they'll shred him. So a lot of that support will go away. The people that are offended by him won't turn out. We lose. Losing means Hillary Clinton wins, and then the country stays on the road it's on right now.
Well, you know, you talk about the media and what it does. We're constantly asking for you, Senator. I know you've got a busy schedule, but happy that you could call in, but it's not a preference of one candidate over the other. But I do want to get your sense about Florida on Tuesday. You said you're confident you can win, and a lot of polls, to your point, show the race narrowing there, depending on what you see. But you said that you'll stick in the race even if you don't win. Do you stand by that?
I'm running for president. I never built my campaign on one state. I will say this. I do believe that the winner of the Florida primary, because of the large number of delegates it awards and because of its importance on the national stage, the winner of the Florida primary is going to have an inside track on the nomination, even if they're behind. So if it's me, I think it's going to really give us an enormous boost. If it's Donald Trump, it's going to help him. There's no doubt about it. And it's going to make it harder to win the nomination. But in the end, we're debating process here in politics. My issue is bigger than that. I'm worried about America. You know, at the end of the day, no matter what happens in this election, I'm going to be a father and a husband, which is my most important jobs. I'll continue to serve in the U.S. Senate until my term expires. But the country has to move forward. And I worry about the country, America, a place where today people last night watched images that looked like they were coming out of some third world country. That's what I'm worried about.
You said that you would continue to serve your country after your term would expire. Assume you do not get the nomination. What would you do?
Well, I'm more than happy. I'm fine with being a private citizen. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a private citizen. You know, public service is what I do. It isn't who I am. You know, I know that people that live and breathe politics think that there's no life after it. I'll move on and do something else with my life if it doesn't work out. I mean, there's hundreds of other ways I can serve our country without being elected. There's a lot of other things I'd like to do in my life. But America is what I'm worried about right now. What happens to the conservative movement? What happens to the Republican Party? And what happens to the greatest nation on earth if these trends we see now continue? It is going to be a very, very ugly campaign moving forward unless we can change the direction of it the way it's going now.
Speaking of ugliness, I know you have to go, and I appreciate you taking the time, Senator, but there were these reports in the press that some people were urging you to step down before the Florida primary, and that the idea being that you could avoid the embarrassment of potentially losing your home state. We're told that you would have none of it. Is there any truth to any of that?
No, well, I mean, people in the press, bloggers and people writing stuff, no one around me ever suggested that. And quite frankly, embarrassment of what? It's an election. People win and lose elections all the time. I don't judge myself by how I perform politically. My life, you know, but a lot more than just that. But I'm very confident we're going to win in Florida. And if I win, I'll be proud of that, and I'll be excited about it. We'll move forward. And if it doesn't work out, you know, life is about a lot more than just politics. It certainly is for me. But I can tell you that the one thing I do care deeply about is the direction of this campaign because of the impact it's going to have on America. I hope people will take a deep breath here before we move forward and the party and the conservative movement goes over the cliff, because I think the implications are going to be dramatic for years and years to come if we make the wrong choice, not just in Florida, but in this election.
Senator Marco Rubio, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
All right.